I stared at the email from the company's CEO for a good 5 minutes, not quite believing what I was seeing. After 20 years of late nights, canceled weekend plans, and countless presentations, I'd finally gotten the promotion, Human Resources Manager to Director of HR, with a salary increase that made my eyes water. I, Carol Watson, had finally made it. My mind drifted to all those moments I'd set aside my own dreams to support my family. The psychology course I abandoned when Dad needed heart surgery. The counseling certification I postponed when Michael crashed his third car. The down payment for my first home diverted to Sarah's college tuition. Now, at 48, I finally had something that was just for me. My phone buzzed. It was Mom. "Hey, are you coming for dinner tonight?" Dad made his pot roast special. I hesitated, feeling the familiar weight of obligation settling on my shoulders. Family dinners weren't exactly my idea of celebration, but I hadn't seen them in weeks. "Yeah, I'll be there around 6. "Perfect. See you then, honey. And don't forget to pick up the prescription for your father on your way. The heart medication, you know how important it is." "I won't forget, Mom," I said, already calculating the cost in my head. It would be another $200 that wouldn't make it into my savings. I hung up and tried to recapture my earlier happiness. Maybe this would be nice. I could share my good news, and for once, maybe I'd be the center of attention. Instead of Michael and Sarah, who had always been my parents' pride and joy. 8 years younger than me, they'd stolen the spotlight from the moment they were born. While I was working through college, they were getting straight A's in high school. While I was starting my career, they were the darlings of their university. Now they were 40 and 38, still living at home, still the golden children who couldn't seem to find stable employment. As I drove to the pharmacy, I rehearsed how I'd share my news. 20 years of dedication finally recognized. 20 years of putting everyone else first, and now, finally, something for me. At the family home, I pulled up to my parents' modest suburban home at 6:15, Dad's heart medication securely in my purse. The familiar sight of the peeling paint on the garage door and the overgrown hedges gave me a pang of guilt. I could have helped them fix this place up years ago if they hadn't insisted that Michael's latest business venture or Sarah's influencer career were more pressing investments. Dad was in his usual recliner watching TV, his weathered hands sketching woodworking designs on a notepad. At 74, his once robust frame had shrunk, but his stubbornness hadn't diminished at all. Mom was setting the table, her reading glasses perched on her nose, humming a tune from her book club's latest audiobook selection. The twins were, as expected, glued to their phones. "Carol," finally, Mom said, looking pointedly at the clock. "We were about to start without you." "Sorry, I had to pick up Dad's prescription," I said, placing the pharmacy bag on the counter. "How much?" Dad asked without looking away from the TV. "Don't worry about it," I replied automatically, though the $200 would have gone nicely toward my own bills. We sat around the table, passing dishes back and forth. Dad talked about his latest woodworking project, a birdhouse he planned to sell at the local craft fair. Mom mentioned something about her book club's heated debate over their latest historical romance. Sarah complained about a brand partnership that fell through for her Instagram, while Michael scrolled through his phone under the table, occasionally muttering about cryptocurrency trends. "So," I said during a pause, smoothing my napkin nervously, "I have some news." 4 pairs of eyes looked at me with mild interest. "I got promoted today. Director of Human Resources for the entire educational division. It comes with a pretty big raise, too." The reaction was unexpected. "That's wonderful, honey," Mom exclaimed, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "About time they recognized your talent," Dad added, looking almost proud for a moment. "Way to go, big sis," Michael said, giving me a fist bump. "Does this mean you're buying dinner next time?" he added with a wink. "That's awesome, Carol," Sarah added, her eyes calculating. "What kind of raise are we talking about? Like percentage-wise?" We all laughed, though something in their sudden interest made me uneasy. For the first time in years, I felt seen, really seen. "Tell us about the new position," Dad prompted, actually putting down his fork to listen. For the next 20 minutes, I talked about my job, my team, the big educational software implementation we were starting. They asked questions. They seemed interested. It was like I'd stepped into some parallel universe where my achievements mattered to my family. You know what this calls for? Mom said, rising from her chair. Your father's special scotch. He's been saving it for a special occasion. As Mom poured the amber liquid into glasses, I couldn't help but wonder why my promotion was worthy of the scotch when Michael's latest, sure thing business idea last month had only warranted regular wine. To Carol, Dad said, raising his glass. The smartest Watson of them all. I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the scotch. For once, I was the star. Driving home, as I drove home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. Growing up, I'd always been the responsible one, the one they called when they needed something. Money for bills, help with Michael and Sarah's college tuition, a new refrigerator when theirs broke down. I never minded helping, not really, but it was nice to be acknowledged for something other than my checkbook. The darkened streets of my neighborhood passed by in a blur as I recalled the surprising evening. Dad had actually listened to me talk about work without his eyes glazing over. Sarah had asked follow-up questions that weren't immediately followed by requests for money. Michael had shown what seemed like genuine interest in my career path. Maybe things are changing, I whispered to myself, gripping the steering wheel. Maybe they finally see me. But a small voice in the back of my mind, one that sounded suspiciously like Jeanette, my straight-talking realtor friend, whispered caution. Just wait, it said. They know you're worth more now. I pushed the thought away. Tonight had been good. I wouldn't let cynicism ruin it. The next few weeks were a blur. I threw myself into work with renewed energy. My team was incredible. Smart, dedicated educators and HR professionals who were excited about our new district-wide training program. If we pulled it off, it would mean a significant advancement in how teachers receive professional development across the state. Then the calls started coming. Carol, honey, can you help us with the property tax bill? It's higher than we expected this year. Your father's heart, you know. The doctor says he shouldn't stress about finances. Hey sis, my car died again. Can you spot me $800 until my app takes off? I've got investors looking at it next month. Carol dear, the furnace needs repairs. Your father's hours at the workshop got cut again. His arthritis, you know. Each request was reasonable, each amount was manageable, and each time I transferred the money without hesitation. They were my family, after all. The property taxes, the car repair, the furnace, all necessities. But I couldn't help noticing that the frequency of these emergencies had increased dramatically since my promotion. Michael and Sarah started texting me regularly, which was new. They'd never shown much interest in my life before. Now they wanted to know how my day was, what I was working on, if they could come over for dinner. Your place is so much nicer than Mom and Dad's, Sarah said one evening, sprawled on my couch after demolishing the poster I'd made. She was scrolling through her phone, pausing occasionally to take photos of my living room for her Instagram. Great lighting in here. Yeah, and your fridge is always full, Michael added, helping himself to another beer from said fridge. He was on his third, and I made a mental note to buy more before the weekend. Must be nice having all that director money, Sarah said, examining her nails, which I noticed were freshly manicured. Your salary must be what, 6 figures now? I laughed uncomfortably, setting down my wine glass. I work hard for it, I reminded them. 20 years at the same company isn't easy. Sure, Michael said, pulling out his wallet and examining it with exaggerated dismay. Speaking of which, can I borrow $500? Car insurance is due, and I've got this investor meeting next week that could change everything. I hesitated for a microsecond, then reached for my purse. What else could I do? They were family. As they left that night, I stood in my doorway watching them get into Sarah's car, which I helped pay for last year. A familiar hollowness settled in my chest. In their own way, they loved me. I was sure of it. But sometimes love and convenience blurred together in ways that left me feeling empty. Project success. 3 months into my new role, we completed the major educational training platform ahead of schedule. The school district administrators were thrilled. The company made a significant profit, and my team got the recognition they deserved. I received a substantial bonus, enough for a down payment on my own place. That night, I opened a bottle of wine and called my realtor friend Jeanette Collins. Unlike my family, Jeanette had been there through my various career struggles, offering practical advice and genuine support without ever asking for anything in return. I want to buy a place, I told her, excitement bubbling through me. Something in the city, good neighborhood, nice layout. I've got enough for a decent down payment now. About damn time, Carol, Jeanette exclaimed, and I could hear her shuffling papers on the other end. You've been talking about this since we were in our 20s. Let me see what I can find. Any specific requirements? 2 bedrooms minimum. I want a study where I can set up for my psychology courses, I said, feeling a small thrill at voicing this long-buried dream aloud. I'm thinking of finally getting that counseling certification. The one you put off when your brother wrecked his car? Jeanette asked pointedly. And when Dad needed his surgery, and when Sarah needed tuition help, I added with a sigh. But that's in the past. I'm 48, Jeanette. If I don't do this now, then you never will, she finished for me. I understand completely. Let's find you the perfect place to start your next chapter. I didn't tell my family about my plans. I wanted it to be a surprise, something to celebrate. For once, I'd be putting myself first, and I couldn't wait to see their reactions. I imagined Mom being proud, Dad offering to build me some bookshelves, maybe even Michael and Sarah being inspired to finally move toward independence themselves. For the next month, Jeanette sent me listings almost daily. Some were too small, others too far from work, and many were way outside my budget, even with the bonus. But finally, she found it. The perfect condominium in a renovated historical building downtown. It's got everything you wanted, Jeanette said. She unlocked the door, her eyes bright with excitement for me. 2 bedrooms, open layout, a study nook for your psychology books, and check out that view. I walked to the windows and gasped. The city skyline stretched before me, glittering in the afternoon sun. The kitchen had gleaming countertops and new appliances. The master bedroom was spacious with a walk-in closet. The second bedroom was perfect for a home office, with built-in shelving already in place. And look, Jeanette said, opening a door I hadn't noticed. A little reading alcove. I thought it would be perfect for your counseling books. It was everything I dreamed of. A place that was just for me, where I could finally pursue the dreams I'd set aside for 2 decades. What's the catch? I asked, certain there had to be one. Good things rarely happen this easily in my experience. Jeanette shrugged. No catch. Owner's relocating overseas and needs to sell quickly. The building has good security, reasonable ho fees, and it's 3 blocks from your office. If you want it, we should move fast, she added, watching my face carefully. And Carol, you deserve this. It's time you did something for yourself. I signed the paperwork that afternoon, using my bonus for the down payment and securing a mortgage for the rest. For the first time in my life, I owned something substantial, something that was just for me. The closing date was set for next month, and I spent the drive home imagining which wall I'd put my psychology degree on once I finally earned it. Meanwhile, the calls and texts from my family continued to increase. Carol, your father's back is acting up again. We need to hire someone to mow the lawn, Mom said one evening, her voice taking on that slight quiver that always made me reach for my wallet. How much? I asked, automatically opening my banking app. Just 300. You're such a good daughter. 2 days later, Michael texted asking for money to fix his car. Again. The day after that, Sarah needed cash for a brand collaboration photo shoot outfit. Each request came with effusive thanks and promises to pay me back someday. Promises we both knew they wouldn't keep. I didn't mind that much, though. I was making good money, and it felt nice to be appreciated, even if it was just for my financial support. Besides, I had my condominium now. I had something that was mine, that no one could take away. Family dinner announcement. Saturday morning, I woke up filled with excitement. Today was the day I would tell my family about the condominium. I imagined their reactions. Surprise, joy, maybe even a little pride in what I'd accomplished after 20 years of hard work. I spent the morning baking Mom's favorite lemon bars to bring over, a recipe I'd perfected over years of family gatherings. As I pulled up to the familiar house, I noticed that Dad still hadn't fixed the sagging gutter I'd mentioned last month. I'd offered to pay for a handyman, but he'd insisted he could do it himself. Now it looked even worse. I made a mental note to call someone myself next week. When I entered, the house was quieter than usual. Dad was dozing in his recliner, the TV murmuring a baseball game in the background. Mom was at the kitchen table, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she sorted through bills with a furrowed brow. The twins were nowhere to be seen. They went out with friends, Mom explained when I asked, not looking up from her paperwork. Should be back for dinner, though. Michael said something about a potential investor and Sarah's meeting with a brand representative. Her tone suggested she believed every word, despite the many potential investors and brand deals that had failed to materialize over the years. I helped Mom prepare the meal, chopping vegetables while she marinated the chicken. We chatted about neighborhood gossip and her book club, easy conversation that required little effort. Dad eventually woke up and joined us, talking about a birdhouse design he was working on in the garage. I could sell these at craft fairs, he said, showing me a sketch. Make a little extra to help with the bills. It was almost normal, almost like we were a regular family, without the undercurrents of expectation and obligation. I almost convinced myself that tonight's announcement would go exactly as I'd imagined. The twins burst through the door at 6, bringing with them a wave of energy and noise. They bickered about something that had happened, barely acknowledging my presence until Mom announced that dinner was ready. Carol made your favorite lemon bars, Helen, Dad said as we sat down, and Mom smiled at me appreciatively. Around the table, I listened to them talk about their day, waiting for the right moment. Michael was animated about a new app idea he had, something about connecting local craftspeople with buyers. It's a guaranteed hit, he said, gesturing with his fork. I just need some seed money to hire a developer. Sarah was scrolling through her phone, showing Mom photos of an outfit she wanted for an upcoming social media campaign. It's an investment, she insisted. The right look could double my followers. I waited for a lull in conversation, my heart pounding. Finally, during a brief pause as Dad served himself seconds, I pulled the folder with my new condominium documents from my bag. I have some news, I said, unable to keep the smile off my face. I bought a condominium. I used my bonus for the down payment. I slid the papers onto the table, showing them photos of my new place. It's downtown, close to work, 2 bedrooms, great view. I move in next month. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. Michael's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Sarah's smile froze, her eyes darting from me to the photos and back. Dad cleared his throat. Don't you think you should have consulted with us first, Carol? I blinked, confused. Why would I need to consult with you about buying my own place? Because we're family, Mom said, her voice taking on an edge I rarely heard, and families make important decisions together. But it's my money, I said slowly, a strange feeling creeping up my spine. I earned it. The bonus was for completing the educational platform project. That bonus could have been put to better use, Dad said, pushing his plate away. The house needs a new roof, and Michael's still paying off his car loan. And I need a new computer for my social media work, Sarah added, her voice accusatory. You knew that, Carol. I stared at them, unable to believe what I was hearing. I've been helping you guys for 20 years, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I paid for part of the twins' college tuition. I send you money every time you ask. And we're grateful, Mom said, though her tone suggested otherwise. But this seems selfish, Carol. The word hung in the air between us. Selfish. Because after 20 years of putting their needs first, I'd finally done something for myself. Selfish? I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. I've given you thousands of dollars over the years. I postponed my own dreams to help you. How was buying myself a home selfish? Emma wouldn't meet my eyes. Michael suddenly found his phone fascinating. Dad stared at his plate, jaw clenched. We're just surprised, Mom said finally, her voice softening with practiced precision. We thought the bonus would help with family expenses, that's all. Like what expenses, exactly? I asked, feeling a strange calmness descend over me. Well, Mom began, glancing at Dad. The property taxes are due next month, and your father's medication costs have gone up. And the twins. The twins are 40 and 38 years old, I interrupted, surprising myself with my firmness. Maybe it's time they supported themselves. The rest of the dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. I tried to start conversations, but was met with one-word answers or nothing at all. When I stood to leave, no one tried to stop me. I guess I'll see you later, I said at the door. Dad grunted. Mom gave a tight nod. The twins didn't even look up. I drove home with tears blurring my vision, feeling like I'd done something terrible when all I'd done was buy myself a home. For the first time, I saw clearly what our relationship had become. I was an ATM, not a daughter or sister. 3 days later, 3 days of silence was all I could take. I missed my family, despite everything, and the hurt had morphed into a determination to fix things. The condominium closing was in 2 weeks, and I wanted to share this milestone with them. I drove to my parents' house unannounced on a Tuesday evening, rehearsing what I'd say the entire way there. When Mom opened the door, her surprise was evident. She looked older somehow, the lines around her eyes deeper than I remembered. Carol? Hi, she said, straightening her cardigan. We weren't expecting you. Can I come in? I asked, forcing a smile that felt brittle on my face. She stepped aside wordlessly. Inside, Dad was watching TV while the twins sat at the dining table with laptops open. All three looked up when I entered, their expressions a mix of surprise and wariness that made my heart ache. I wanted to invite you all out to dinner, I announced before I lost my nerve. Saturday night at Emilio's my treat. I thought we could talk things out and celebrate my new place properly. The silence stretched for an uncomfortable moment before Mom spoke. Emilio's? That fancy Italian place downtown? I nodded. I made reservations for 7. I want you to see the neighborhood where I'll be living. Michael and Sarah exchanged glances, a silent communication that excluded me as always. I noticed Sarah was wearing a new blouse that still had the price tag partially visible under her arm. I wondered if she'd bought it with the money I'd given her last week. We'll be there, Dad finally said, his voice gruff. Right, everyone? Mom nodded, though her smile didn't reach her eyes. Of course. That's very generous, Carol. Michael shrugged. Free dinner at Emilio's? Count me in. I'll need to check my schedule, Sarah said, looking down at her phone. I might have a collaboration shoot that day. It's at 7, I repeated, trying to keep my voice even. Please try to make it, Sarah. It's important to me. She glanced up, something flickering in her eyes that might have been guilt. I'll move things around, she conceded. As I turned to leave, Mom followed me to the door. Carol, she said quietly, we are happy for you. It's just. Just what, Mom? She sighed, her hand fluttering to her throat where she wore the necklace I'd bought her for her 70th birthday. We've always been able to count on you. You're the reliable one, the strong one, and I always will be, I assured her, though something inside me rebelled at the words. But I need to build something for myself too. I'm 48, Mom. It's time. She nodded, patting my arm. Of course, dear. We'll see you Saturday. Saturday night. Saturday arrived, and I spent extra time getting ready, wanting to look my best. I wore a new emerald green dress that highlighted the silver in my auburn hair, a splurge from a boutique that cost more than I'd normally spend. I'd even had my hair and makeup done professionally, the stylist adding subtle highlights that made me look more vibrant than I'd felt in years. You look amazing, Carol, she'd said as I left the salon. Someone special tonight? My family, I'd answered, and meant it. At 6:45 on Saturday evening, I arrived at Emilio's. The hostess showed me to the private room I'd reserved, with its view of the city skyline that reminded me of my soon-to-be new home. I ordered a glass of champagne and settled in, reviewing the conversation points I'd mentally prepared. I would explain how important this condominium was to me, not just as a home, but as a symbol of the life I wanted to build in my remaining years. I'd talk about the psychology courses I planned to take, the dream of becoming a counselor that I deferred for decades. I'd reassure them that I wasn't abandoning them, just creating a space for myself to grow. 7 o'clock came and went. Then 7:30. I checked my phone repeatedly, sent texts asking if they were on their way. By 8 o'clock, I was on my third glass of champagne and had called each family member twice with no answer. The waiter approached hesitantly, his eyes sympathetic in a way that made my chest ache. "Ma'am, would you like to order? The kitchen will be closing the main service soon." "Just a few more minutes," I said, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. "They'll be here." By 9 o'clock, I knew they weren't coming. The champagne had left a sour taste in my mouth, and the beautiful dress felt like a costume for a play where the other actors had failed to show up. I paid for my drinks and the room fee, tipped the staff generously for their patience, and left with as much dignity as I could muster. In my car, I checked my phone one more time. No calls, no texts, but just as I was about to drive away, a notification popped up. A message from Mom in the family group chat. My hand shook as I opened it. "This is what happens when you're selfish and don't help your family. Maybe next time you'll think twice before saying no to us. Happy birthday, Carol." I stared at the message, unable to believe what I was reading. They had deliberately stood me up on my 48th birthday to teach me a lesson for not paying for their expenses with my bonus. I hadn't even mentioned it was my birthday when making the reservation, assuming they'd remember as they had every other year, with at least a card or phone call. But they had remembered. They just chose to use it as a weapon. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing between hurt and fury. When I got to my apartment, I kicked off my heels and poured myself a glass of wine. "Happy birthday to me," I whispered, raising my glass to my empty living room. Then I opened my banking app and canceled the automatic $2,000 monthly transfer to my parents that I'd set up years ago. I felt a strange calm as I hit confirm. Not guilt, not anxiety, just relief, as if I'd put down a heavy suitcase I'd been carrying for 20 years. The week of silence. The next week passed in a blur of work and quiet evenings alone. No calls from family, no texts, no emails. It was peaceful, if a bit lonely, until the following Sunday when my phone exploded with notifications. Missed calls from Mom, Dad, Michael, and Sarah, voicemails, text messages, all within the span of an hour. I ignored them all day, focusing instead on a training protocol I needed to finish for work. But by evening, curiosity got the better of me. I listened to the first voicemail. "Carol, it's Mom. The money didn't arrive in our account this month. There must be some mistake. Call me back immediately." The second. "Carol, we're waiting for your call. The bank says there's no pending transfer." This is serious. By the fifth message, Mom was frantic. "We have bills due tomorrow. What are we supposed to do? Your father's heart medication. Call us right now." I waited until 10 p.m. when I knew they'd all be home, then called back. Mom answered on the first ring. "Where have you been? We've been trying to reach you all day. The money didn't come through. We have utility bills, your father's medication. I canceled the transfers," I said, cutting her off. My voice sounded different to my ears, stronger, clearer. There was a moment of stunned silence. "You what?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I canceled the monthly transfers. I'm not sending money anymore." But, but why? "We need that money. Your father needs his heart medication. We'll lose the house." Her voice rose in pitch, that familiar manipulation that had worked on me for decades. "You stood me up on my birthday to punish me," I said, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling in my chest. "And then you had the nerve to text me that it was a lesson. Well, I learned it. I learned that I'm just a bank account to you." "That's not true," Mom protested. "We were just upset about the condominium. We didn't mean anything by it. It was just a joke." I laughed, a sharp sound with no humor. "Some joke. Leaving your daughter alone in a restaurant on her 48th birthday. We're sorry, okay? We made a mistake. But please, Carol, we really need that money. The electricity bill is past due, and your father's prescription, that's not my problem anymore," I said, surprising myself with my firmness. Maybe it's time for Dad to work more than part-time on his woodworking. Maybe it's time for Michael and Sarah to get jobs, any jobs, instead of waiting for their dream careers to fall into their laps. I'm done. You can't just abandon your family. Mom cried, her voice breaking. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? I asked quietly. When was the last time you helped me with anything? When was the last time any of you put me first? The silence on the other end was answer enough. I need to go now, I said. I have work tomorrow. Carol, wait. I hung up and blocked their numbers. Then I blocked them on social media and in my email. Decades of conditioning made my hands shake as I did it, but with each block, I felt lighter, freer. The next morning, I warned security at my office building that my family members might try to contact me and that I didn't want to see them. I made the same call to the doorman at my apartment building. My hands were trembling as I hung up, but I knew it was necessary. Sure enough, they tried. Dad showed up at my office 2 days later, telling the receptionist it was a family emergency. When I refused to see him, he made a scene in the lobby until security escorted him out. Sarah waited outside my apartment building the day after that, her face tear-stained and convincingly desperate. I walked past her without a word, her pleas falling on deaf ears. Carol, please. We didn't mean to hurt you. We need you. Through Jeanette, who still spoke occasionally with my cousin Linda, I heard that life had gotten tough for them. Dad had to take on full-time hours at the local hardware store despite his arthritis. The electricity was cut off for a week when they couldn't pay the bill. Michael was applying for retail jobs, complaining the whole time about how he was overqualified. Sarah had taken a position as a receptionist, but quit after 3 days because it was beneath her skills. I felt no sympathy. They had made their choices, just as I had made mine. 6 months later, my new condominium felt like home now. I'd painted the walls in soothing blues and greens, set up my home office with psychology textbooks lining the shelves, and started taking online courses toward my counseling certification. Twice a week, I volunteered at a women's shelter, offering what guidance I could while I worked toward my degree. You look 10 years younger, Jeanette commented over coffee on my balcony one Sunday morning. Less burdened somehow. I feel it, I admitted, watching the city come to life below us. I still miss them sometimes. They're my family, after all. They treated you like an ATM, not a daughter, Jeanette reminded me gently. Family is about mutual support, not one-way extraction. Later that week, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized Mom's handwriting. Inside was a birthday card months late with a simple message. We're sorry. We miss you. Please call us when you're ready. I studied the card for a long time, tracing Mom's familiar handwriting with my finger. There was no mention of money, no veiled request for help. Just an apology, perhaps the first sincere one I'd ever received from them. I put the card in my desk drawer and closed it firmly. Maybe someday I'd forgive them for seeing me as nothing more than a resource to be exploited, but not today. Not yet. Today I was focusing on myself, my career, my studies, the life I had built with my own hard work and determination. For the first time in nearly 50 years, I was putting Carol first, and it felt right. It felt like finally coming home to myself